Alright, what's going on? So I'm just kind of doing this on my own. Usually I'm in the Discord where people can kind of hop in and out and, join or whatnot. But I'm just doing this on my own for right now because just that type of vibe right now. So to preface Shadow, this is, and I'm assuming that this is only Shadow watching it because it's going to have Shadow's name in it. I'm going to send it specifically to you. But these are the games where Complex was in here. It was against the 3.9. Everything was a very scuffed, a mess. We were just doing our best. But I was watching your POV for this because we said we wanted to run a form of dive. Of course, it's not going to be very well executed, but I saw some telling things about the way you use abilities and the way you position and follow up on your teammates that I think could have been improved upon even if this was a scuffed game, right? I think all in all, your habits in terms of aggression have gotten a lot better. You've been throwing the games much less, to just put it bluntly, basically, because you haven't been putting yourself in positions where you get picked early in the fight, or putting yourself in position where you have to pop off it in order to get any value. Because that's largely what you were doing before, is you'd play very far away from the team, or you'd be aggressive at the wrong time, and there'd be no way to really save you, or we'd have to expend a bunch of resources in order to do so. And in order to get any value out of that positioning, you had to get 2 or 3 kills in order to make it worth the trade, because you were going to die inevitably against the team who was coordinated and calling out where you were, right? So you've gotten a lot better about positioning with the team and stuff like that. I still see moments where you may be too aggressive that we haven't had time to look at, and I want to try to maybe get to that after this one, but I wanted to look at ability usage and team focus, because a lot of times there's going to be situations where we just need to target the same hero or the same enemy in order to get any value out of the fight, and dive is one of those compositions where the focus fire is going to be super duper important. There's going to be some compositions where everybody can kind of do their own thing and play on their own space, but dive, Death Ball, 2 compositions that I think we can learn a lot from. They really require you to play together and focus the same target. So we're going to be looking at some of that target focus. We're going to be looking at some of that ability usage, and maybe some mistimed aggression in terms of like going in right before your team is not ready, or right after your team initiates, like you're a second late, a second early. We're going to try to see if we can flesh out any of those minor timing details or stuff like that. So that's enough of kind of like a preface. Let's just get into it and look at what happens. And I will point out things as we see them. So, alright, I'm gonna be a little nitpicky here, right? Not super nitpicky. So, Genetic jumps out of spawn. And I think you can dash behind him. I think the main thing is that when we're coming out of these spawn rooms, we want to try to get into our positions as fast as possible. So if we have a mobility cooldown that's not extensively long, which I don't think there are any mobility cooldowns that are extensively long that I can think of in the game, you want to be trying to use them so that you can get into your position as quickly as possible, right? And the position that you're really going to be getting into is going to be this bridge area, because this is going to be the first point that you can possibly die from, right? Because this is going to be the first point where you'll actually engage with the enemies and be able to see who they are and who you can go after. So I think you could have dashed to keep up with Genetic here a little bit more. Not the hugest issue, but then Genetic is going to make this jump, and this is where the cohesion and the timing has to be a little bit cleaner, right? We want this to be as smooth and as perfect as possible, and that's how we're going to get the highest level of gameplay. But we really want you to be crossing these gaps as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, because once Genetic is going to jump to over here, if he's alone, it's very easy for the enemies to force him out because he has no mobility cooldown. And although we want to look at the same thing for Luna, I'm looking at you particularly because Luna's not going to be one of our tank players normally. She's going to be GAing as Mercy. You're one of the few people here who's actually on their main role. Like I said, these are just habits and tells and kind of talking about how to play dive in the first place. So I think here you could have done 1 or 2 things. Okay, there's that dash, but I think it's a little bit too late, right? I think part of it is Genetic maybe not calling it properly, but the other part of it is you're not looking at Genetic, right? And sometimes you just have to be looking at the person who's going to be jumping in order to get across. The other thing that you could have done instead of dashing, if you wanted to save your mobility cooldown and you were going to be delayed anyway, is you could have just double jumped across with Deflect in order to clear the space while still having your dash up for the engage later. Because I believe at this point what's happening is what it's probably going to happen is Genetic's going to be off cooldown in 3 seconds, and because you just dashed, you're going to be off cooldown in 8 seconds, which means the dive can't engage for another 8 seconds. Dive is super cooldown oriented and is kind of big on min-maxing. So I would have probably dashed out of the gate and then deflect double jumped in order to get across, so that you could have your mobility cooldown synced up together and go in as soon as possible. I think what you did isn't bad, it's just inoptimal, you know. We're just looking to kind of optimize as much as we can and kind of nitpick where we can see it, because, you know, you're within the top 15% at Diamonds, top 5% at Masters, top 1% at Grandmasters. So we're really just looking to adjust more minute things continuously as we go up. So, you know, like I said, it's not bad. It's just maybe inoptimal. Desyncs your cooldowns a little bit, and we could do to have those synced up, right? So now you can't dash in for another few seconds. Not a bad thing. So this is where I really start to get a little bit concerned with your focus fire, right? So Zen goes down. It looked like you were going to try to go after the Zen with your dive tanks, but then after that, you almost instantly derail to the soldier, right? So the soldier is not a bad target for Genji to duel against in a 1v1 situation. Unfortunately, the Sigma's right there, so this isn't really going to be a 1v1 situation. But the main thing that we really want to be focused on in dive is focusing that individual target down, right? So we called that we were going left side. Your tanks dove left. You know that once they dive, they have no more movement abilities. You should at least be waiting to hear who they're going to go after next, or going to them and kind of existing around them, because honestly, in this situation, you're very exposed. If this soldier, Echo, and Sigma all realize that you're kind of out on your own here, you could get rocked, sticky down, maybe hit with a rocket. I don't know if they exactly... Okay, so there's the rock, right? Sigma combos you down. So that's not necessarily due to the Sigma being amazing or anything like that. That's more so you just go in without full awareness of what's going on. But even more so than that, you're in a space without your tanks. And Genji without his dash, or Genji who, when he's not initiating the contact with whoever is around him, can be very weak, because he doesn't exactly get to decide his fate or outcome, because he doesn't have too many resources to keep himself alive, right? That's why you always see the I need healing Genjis, right? Because when you go in super aggressively and you go into a bunch of people, you're only engaging on one person. You have one target in mind. That means everybody else gets to chip damage at you, and there's not a lot you can do to defend yourself against them, which is why you want to be in Genetics Bubble. That's why you want to be in that space there, because if you're in the space of your tanks, it's almost not even possible for the Sigma to try to kill you, right? Let's say he even like lands the rock on you when you're over here. First of all, he has to hit it through two fat bodies, but also they're going to be able to defense matrix you once the rock hits you, or maybe throw it on a bubble, or just stand in front of the damage by accident. There's so many different things that your tanks can do for you when you just play in their space, right? And I think that's one of the things that we can really stand to work on, is just at the very least playing in your tank space, if not also, you know, focusing what they're focusing and so on and so forth. Sorry about my frames. I really don't know what's up with that. I'm going to try to do the thing that Tat was saying I could do. Options, video, reduce buffering on, apply, reduce buffering off, apply, reduce buffering up. He was saying you just kind of spam this. It doesn't seem to work for me though. Okay. Okay, so this is the other thing. There was quite a few instances where you see an opportunity to kind of farm ultimate and stuff like that, and you tend to go after it. You're not going to kill ball, right? I'm not even going to entertain the idea that you think you can kill ball, because I don't think you're that ridiculous that you think you can kill ball. But I think you just see an opportunity to farm ult here, and it's just mistimed. When the enemies are pushed up this far, it's just very bad to kind of take an aggressive stance, because obviously they have momentum and positioning on their side, and that's the only reason that they're being this aggressive, right? You definitely... Okay, so if they're being this aggressive and you want to punish them for being this aggressive, I can understand if you went after a squishy who you have an advantage on, but you went after ball. Also, the other thing is that we really kind of want to play conservative when it comes to movement cooldowns when people are playing aggressive like that, because even if you want to punish people, you never want to punish people at the cost of your own life, right? So in order to preserve your own life, you want to make sure that you have at least one cooldown that's able to get you out of any bad situation. That's going to be your dash. So you go after a target here who's not easy to kill. You're not going to be able to finish this target. You're just looking to farm ultimate at best. You use your movement cooldown, which means you have no escape if anybody like starts to get aggressive onto you. I don't know, you're just in a really kind of tough situation here where Genetics Bubble is probably about to go down, and you don't even seem to be aware of who your tanks are looking at, so you're kind of disregarding the dive-oriented style anyway. Okay, I was cool with this because you had deflect to get out. This moment right here was particularly interesting to me because you're going to use dash to go in, and then deflect is going to be your way out, but you're not going to leave with deflect. You're actually going to look to get value with deflect, which is, I think, the wrong intention here, right? Because you're in a really, really risky position, and once your deflect goes down, you have no ability to protect yourself. So again, if this Sigma, you know, hits you with anything, I mean, if he hits you with a rock, he puts your deflect down, but if he hits you with, you know, damage after your deflect goes down, there's nothing you can necessarily do to stop it except just hope that he misses or doesn't notice you, right? So I think here we're gonna watch it. You're looking to get the deflect damage or the deflect value, and it's just not very worth it. We want to use that deflect to get smoothly out. We don't want to try to be, you know, getting extra value out of situations where we need to get in and out, because like I've said before, dive isn't about these pokes, because this is just poke. You're not going to kill anybody here. Dive isn't about these pokes. Dive is about the actual dive itself, the focusing the target and burning them down, because all of these heroes, I mean, normally we might be playing, you know, like it looks like we might be kind of swapping around, but all of the dive heroes that you're going to traditionally play in a dive composition are pretty bad at poke in general. Like Genji has decent poke, but it's slow projectile poke that doesn't do a ton of damage outright. He needs to get up close, he needs to use his dash, he needs to get his resets. Monkey is the same thing. He has like no poke, Diva has no poke, etc, etc. So we want to make sure that when we're playing dive, when we say to ourselves, hey, we're playing dive, we want to not just commit to the heroes, but we want to commit to the style as well, which is going to say we don't want to poke that much. And I'm not saying in the future that we never want to poke at all, especially as with you on Genji or something like that. We're going to want some poke in the future, but to start, I want us to understand the basics of dive so that we can start understanding where and when we should poke, because there's too much chaos in this composition right now for us to be kind of doing, you know, small extra adjustments or making small audibles on the fly, because poke in dive is a form of an audible, right? Like I said, that's not what the core composition is about. So we want to kind of stick to this identity and want to stick to this idea, especially in scrims where we're like practicing something. I can understand in game if you're like, nah, I just need to farm my blade in order for us to win this. I can understand that if that's the rationale, but during scrims, like, we want to say, let's practice this style, let's make sure that we have it down pat, then practice that style. Make sure that you're getting to that time to really, like, get in there and practice that style. So I think this is mistimed nano. I think this whole thing is kind of botched, honestly. I think this is a really good target. I want to see what happens to Genetic, and I think this is one of those situations, if I'm remembering correctly, which I might not be, where I think you were calling the target, and it was just a matter of, like, you didn't call the location. So I would call this connector because it could connect second to first, and it's got a mini, so I would say connector on the mini, personally. But yeah, what happens to Genetic? Is he gonna? No, he doesn't get hoisted up. He's just going to dive in there a little bit late. Let's see what happens with you on a micro scale. If you use your cooldowns properly and everything like that. So you have deflect up, dash, deflect. Okay, this is, yeah. So this is kind of similar to the deflecting that I was talking about before, where you're trying to use deflect to get a kill. And it's like, it's cool that you're trying to use deflect to get a kill. Because, you know, you want to get the kill at the end of the day, you want to get the value to win the fight, but I think you have to recognize timing here and wait until the tank has actually showed up for you to be able to properly engage on a target. This ends really, really good, right? This team is high ranked, whatever, they're going to be mechanically good, or mechanically better than us probably. So we want to try to outplay them in a team sense, and I think the key thing here is that when you have the Discord on you and you have the deflect up, that once your deflect goes down, you're pretty dead, because the Zen will not miss his shot. So the only thing you can do is retreat around the corner, because if you retreat around the corner until your tank comes and puts pressure on the Zen from behind, then, you know, like, this is a losing fight for you, even if this Mercy might be leaving. I don't know what she's doing exactly, but, like, you can't win this fight necessarily right here. So we have to play for the team setting, which means you have to use your deflect to actually get out and not kind of wiggle in place here. And we can kind of, let's watch this back in 0.5 speed so you can really see, because it's really micro movements that might be getting you in trouble here and there, right? So, whoops. So the deflect is going to go up. And I'm going to go back again because I kind of overshot that a little bit more than I wanted to. I think I went too far back, Jesus. Okay. Anyway, let's watch it from right here, right? So you're going to get the dash onto the lady, and that's going to be good. But then you're going to take a step forward into this Zen sight lines here, and it's going to get you killed. Kind of botched Echo's name, and then I fell apart from there. But yeah, okay. So, again, Soldier goes low. Genetic gets the primal, you get the nice dash onto the Echo, and then you deflect while walking forward in a 2v1 situation. I guess it rewound by 20 seconds. But yeah, you're going to deflect while walking forward in a 2v1 situation. And that's just going to be kind of super dangerous. Just because... Where did it bring us? Okay, it brought us forward 20 seconds. Yeah, but it's going to be dangerous just because, whatchamacallit, that Zen isn't going to miss his shots, and there's nobody there to help you yet. So I think if you played that a little bit slower, just play it a little bit more passive until Genetic comes out, we're not looking for you to pop off and carry and get these 2 kills. Like, if you hit your shots and then, farm your blade and pop off and get 2, that's amazing, that's awesome. But I'm not looking for somebody who can do that. I'm looking for somebody who can play the composition and play with the team properly, because it's very, very rare that we're going to find anybody who can do things like that. And I don't expect anyone to be trying to be that type of player, because it's just not good for everybody else on the team if you're playing a very selfish style, because then it throws off the balance. It might get some wins, but it's also going to cause some losses because everybody else is going to be kind of more of a weak point, because if you're taking all the resources, like, we want a very balanced composition where we can shift resources around, and this means I really indulged everybody's ability to pop off when they're having their day, when they're having their time. But this also means that if you're not doing it, that I also want you to have this kind of like gear back, where it's like, we don't need to put resources into you just to keep you alive, or put resources into you all the time. We can put resources maybe into somebody else who's having a good day, or somebody else who's having a bad day, to keep the composition more stable, to keep the team more stable, right? So like I said, it'd be good if you could blade here and kind of pop off and kill 2, but I don't want that type of player. I want somebody who can play this angle properly. You have this deflect coming up. The dash even could have gotten you out. But yeah, just wait for Genetic and try to get that value where you're pincering from both sides. Because if you deflect while backing up a little bit, you still have your dash to get out. But once Genetic lands on that backside, you can even dash through to his bubble to have that protection, and then finish up that Mercy and that Zen. And I'm not sure, actually, even now that I think about it, that it's necessarily that these people's mechanics are better than your guys's. I think it's actually maybe just so, like, you went in against a Mercy and a Zen right there. And both of you hit your shots, but he had a Mercy pocket. Tad is just absolutely farming that ult, which is good. What happens there? I don't even think that's entirely your fault. 77, 79, 200. Okay, poking. You get poked down to 115. You get poked down to 177, 26. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's your fault. I think maybe you don't peek the top after you get hit, splashed a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's your fault necessarily. I feel like I remember you having a really good blade here. Look how fast that Discord gets on you. Like, you just land and the Discord's immediately on you. Oh, my frames are back. I don't know. I want to look back at that. Because I thought that was, like, good positioning. It was a good engagement, like, space that you were going in from. But where's your team? That's the real concern. Okay, so 2 of us are dead. I think maybe that's the real problem. This is one of those mistimed aggression things where it's like 2 of us are dead. Like, just chill. Because this is a really good engage. If Genetic's able to jump in here, I think, you maybe get a lot of value out of this. But I think with everybody being dead, nobody else wants to go in right now. We want to just regroup and try to get that value out of regrouping and getting the team fight, especially since things haven't been going well. We just want to execute the team fight properly as a 6. So I just think this is mistimed. I think you got to communicate more of like we're in regroup phase. Then you don't do stuff like this because this is now going to be, you're dead now just as Tat and Luna are respawning, and now we have to wait for you. And it's like those are the things, right? That it's like we lost to Caldwell last time, right? And a large part of it was because we were a new team, right? We hadn't really had much time to practice and scrim together. But looking at a lot of those fights, there was a lot of times where you do stuff like that. And then we would have to just burn the clock, basically waiting for you, or take a fight when we're down 1 or something like that, And we really want to try to scrub those situations out because they're super dangerous. And this is one of the reasons that even though Frosty isn't able to get as much value as you, she's able to play and have the team perform about as well as when you're there. Because that dash was very nice. I was a cool dash. It was a good dash. But yeah, she's able to kind of play and have the team get as much value as when it's with you, because there's some fights like that where you're just dying at a bad time. The repeak, I think that's something that you can kind of just expect against good Zens, is the repeak like that. They're going to have confidence in their mechanics. You could have deflected that and been ready for it. But yeah, if we can scrub those out, I think the team, everybody has agreed. Everybody was saying without anybody kind of asking, they were like, "God damn, Shadow, so good." Not even joking. It was the scrim that you messaged me and you said, "I feel like I played really well," and I agreed. Everybody on the team was like, "Shadow played really well." So I think those are just kind of the general things that we can flesh out. I think a lot of it is going to be just figuring out timing, and it's going to be probably difficult for you in certain moments to know whether or not you should be going in, because it's very fast that things happen and you have to make very quick split-second decisions. But if you're able to flesh a lot of those depths out of your play, or even add a little bit of hesitation every now and again into, like, do I engage right now? No. Wait 2 seconds, then go. I think you can get a lot of value out of your picks and stuff like that. A lot more value out of your picks. Like I said, I think your aggression on King's Row and stuff like that has gotten a lot better, especially with us understanding how to play the map as a whole. I think there's some times where you're playing in positions where you're still going to get punished every once in a while against better teams. But I think we're going to, it'll be easier for you to see those situations when they actually come. And I'm not too concerned about them for right now. Maybe we'll go look at them in the holistic sense a bit later, but I just want you to flesh out these. I think these deaths, like on Eichenwald here, are going to be big, especially in the new maps. Like when we're playing a map that we haven't played, like let's say we go into Numbani, we played Numbani like once, it's going to be pretty important that you don't feed those deaths to the enemy team, because those small delays can sometimes mess us up. And this is an inoptimal fight as a whole. I think in a normal fight, it is usually you who's committing those deaths the most, but you're not the only one that I've talked about this with. So, I'm going to end it here. Not going to look at the defense because, like I said, I'm just worried about kind of those deaths. That's the main concern. It's just I want to flesh out those moments a little bit more. So if you think that this, wow, 24 minutes, I talked way too much. If you think this didn't help or didn't show enough stuff, let me know, and we'll try to go over more things. I think there's some strict positional things that we could look at on Junkrat, where it's like some positioning is just objectively bad. This one was more about, like I said, timing. So I'm going to stop repeating myself. I'm going to end the VOD. Yeah, just let me know if there's anything else you want to go over before Wednesday's game.